Pokemon Go is a free-to-play mobile game that is just too expensive to play. For the past couple of years, Niantic has been pushing more and more monetization practices that are borderline reprehensible. In order to keep up with the FOMO elements that Niantic keeps throwing players' way, they are almost always required to spend a considerable amount of money. But many will argue that Pokemon Go is not a game that requires you to spend any money, and to some degree that is true. But for the sake of this video essay, I wanted to explore every aspect of Pokemon Go's monetization that has gotten more egregious over time. You might be surprised to find that this free-to-play game is incredibly expensive. Alright, how's it going everyone? It's me, it's Jinsula. I hope you're having a good day and welcome to today's Pokemon Go video. Today is going to be a video essay. I'm going to be talking about a lot of stuff related to Pokemon Go's monetization, and I do think there's a lot of things we need to discuss as a Pokemon Go community. There's a lot of things that Niantic has been doing, especially in the year 2023, which is, in my opinion, a detriment to Pokemon Go's longevity. If they want this game to last for several more years, then I really feel like they need to course correct and stay away from all the things that I'm talking about. But of course, this is all just based on my own personal opinions, based on a lot of the decisions that Niantic made this year, and I want to know what you are thinking down below. So make sure you share your thoughts on everything that I'm going to be talking about in the comments. And yeah, with that said, let's talk about Pokemon Go's monetization. Let's start off with what is probably going to be the biggest money sink in Pokemon Go. Raiding. Raid battles in Pokemon Go have been the foundation for Niantic's revenue. Ever since it was first introduced, raid passes have been the primary reason why a vast majority of players have been spending money in this game. While you do get a free raid pass every day from spinning a gym, getting the best of the best Pokemon will almost always require doing multiple raid battles per day. The reason for this is because of IVs, or individual values. When you appraise a Pokemon, you will find that each of them have their own star rating, with varying values in attack, defense, and health. Getting a perfect appraisal on a Pokemon means you have a variant that has the absolute best values in each of these three stats. It is pretty much as good as it will ever get. While Pokemon Go doesn't have outright gacha mechanics like most other games, the randomness of getting perfect IVs is what drives players to do several raids rather than just being one and done. Thus, purchasing premium raid passes will almost always be a must if you want to stay competitive in PvP and all other forms of battling gameplay, as higher IVs will give you the edge in the Master League, gym battles, and even raid battles. It's also not just IVs why players tend to do so many raid battles. Powering up a Pokemon to the max level is incredibly resource intensive. You need a ton of Stardust, Candies, and Candy XL of that Pokemon in order to get it to the most powerful state it can be. Since most of the best Pokemon in the game are legendaries, and since most legendaries are locked behind raids, the only way to get enough resources to power them up will be to raid as much as you can. Now, this has never been a point of contention within the Pokemon Go community. The pricing for raid passes have always been fair, and it was never to a point where players were spending more than they should for whatever results they wanted. However, things changed drastically in 2023. One of the ways players purchased premium raid passes in bulk was through bundle boxes within the in-game shop. These bundles gave you a significant discount on several premium items that players need for their daily gameplay. However, slowly over time, Niantic was lowering the value of these bundles until they reached a point where the value of purchasing them was almost negligible compared to buying the items individually. This was a major blow to the Pokemon Go community. Many players relied on these bundles as they were typically affordable and allowed them to play the game to a degree that provided them with whatever Pokemon they needed. But this was not the only step Niantic took to bleed players of their hard-earned money. One of the most popular items among Pokemon Go players ever since it was introduced was remote raid passes. This item allowed you to participate in raid battles even if you were not in the vicinity of the raid. Well, in 2023, Niantic made the questionable decision to limit the amount of remote raids you can do per day, while also doubling the price of these items. Suddenly, raiding, which is probably the crux of Pokemon Go's gameplay and the only source for some of the best Pokemon in the game, is now incredibly expensive to the average player. People who go completely free to play will likely never be able to compete in the Master League of the Go Battle League, and the Pokemon that they use in raids and gym battles will always be average at best. Now, raiding is not the only area of Pokemon Go where I feel like Niantic has been getting more egregious. We also need to talk about special research tickets. A major part of Pokemon Go's gameplay for the past several years has always been various special research storylines that players would get with in-game events. These were typically free and provided players with plenty of items and rare Pokemon. The only time there was a cost attributed to these special research stories was with big in-game events like Pokémon GO Fest. However, over time, Niantic began charging money for these special research stories. In order to access them, you would need to pay for a ticket in the in-game shop. What was once considered a decent form of free gameplay was now something you had to pay for. I don't think enough players spoke out against this when it first started happening. Niantic has been pushing the bounds further and further. What was considered untouchable early on, like exclusive Pokemon or bonuses, are now gatekept to whales and frequent buyers. I mean, most recently, they added a special research ticket that had a bonus that was free right beforehand. The Expedition ticket will unlock a bonus where you can hold up to 40 gifts and open up to 50 gifts per day. This bonus was free in the previous season. Now, this leads me to the last area of Pokemon GO's monetization where I feel like Niantic has gotten out of control, and that is special in-game events like Pokemon GO Fest and GO Tour. When it comes to special in-game and in-person events like Pokemon GO Fest and GO Tour, this has always been kind of like a staple aspect of Pokemon GO. I think it goes without question that these special in-game yearly events like Pokemon GO Fest have always been a major cash cow for Niantic. It wouldn't surprise me that a bulk of their yearly revenue comes from these special events, and I feel like Niantic had recognized that. So they started doing things that went completely under the radar for most players. They started tacking on a bunch of different add-ons to all these special event tickets that would drive a lot more revenue out of these events. Think about this. So Pokemon GO Fest in 2018, to get the full entire experience, it would cost you roughly $20. But to get the entire experience for Pokemon GO Fest 2023 was $30 for the ticket, and then $15 for the Raid Lover add-on, and then $15 for the Enthusiast add-on, and then $20 more for an additional day of gameplay. So you're spending almost triple what you would typically spend just for a complete experience. And yeah, I totally recognize that most of these add-ons are completely optional, but considering that most players will be traveling far and wide for these special events, they would probably feel obliged to buy every single add-on in order to get the absolute best experience. This sort of practice is incredibly predatory, and it's not like as if we're getting better in-person events to begin with. If Niantic were to charge players a much higher price, then the return should be something that's much more worthwhile, but it doesn't really feel that way with a lot of these special in-game events. Now, something you should all keep in mind is that everything that I talked about is just the beginning of it. Like, Niantic could get a lot worse than they currently are. I think when it comes to monetization, it's always been a very fine line when it comes to free-to-play games, and I feel like up until around 2022, Niantic has been walking that line pretty well. Like, up until that point, I just felt like Pokemon GO was one of those rare mobile games where they were not extremely greedy with their monetization practices. But a lot of that changed recently, and I really feel like this is a terrible direction for Pokemon GO, especially if they want to keep players engaged with their game. I think when it comes to a lot of different things like raiding and egg hatching and special in-game events, Niantic is going down a path where a lot of players are going to be fed up with a lot of it. I really hope that in the coming years, Niantic decides to go with much better monetization practices. A lot of things in Pokemon GO are starting to get way too expensive, and I really do think that if Niantic wants to see players continue to play their game over a longer period of time, then they need to think about making these things a lot more valuable. Seriously, the return on investment when it comes to raid passes, egg incubators, and special research tickets need to be really high, or else people are just simply not going to buy them. Like, having good raid battles is one thing, but if you're going to have premium raid passes and remote raid passes be so expensive, then players are going to choose to just not raid, and that's going to be a detriment to pretty much everyone. I really do want Pokemon GO to last for several more years, and in order for them to get to that point, the Niantic needs to value the time and effort of all of their players, and that's really how they're going to get there. But yeah, in any case, that's going to be it for this video. Now, I know there was a lot of things that I covered in this video that is pretty much going to be divisive in the Pokemon GO community. I would love to know your thoughts regarding everything that I talked about. Is there a particular area of Pokemon GO that you feel is just overly monetized? Is there an aspect of Pokemon GO that you would like to see improved? Let me know those thoughts in the comments below, and let's have a great discussion. And thank you so much for making it to this point in the video. I know it was a lot longer than I usually make. If you ended up enjoying it and found it to be insightful, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if it's your first time here. And also don't forget to hit that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. Now I want to give a quick shout out to all the members of my Patreon family. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support my channel in any way, big or small, then make sure you go and check out the links in the description below. For all my patrons, they get a permanent spot on my in-game friends list. So if you want to interact with me in some way within Pokemon GO, like with remote raids or the friendship system, then make sure you go and check out my Patreon. Also, if you want to support my channel without spending any money, you could always do so by following me on social media. My handle is @Jinsula, and I'm on these following platforms. Alright, and that's going to be it. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.